Hi, everyone. It's Rita Desnoyers-Garcia of Becoming Awake and the Calm Mom Alliance private Facebook group, and of course, the Becoming Awake YouTube channel. I'm so glad to be here today. I'm in a different office. I'm in my husband's office because he's away and it's bigger and better. And I've been on a writing retreat, so I really needed a closed space. So I'm feeling very in retreat space. And I'm glad that I did it. And I'm glad that it's finished and that I can be here with you today. But anyway, different background. That was a long explanation. So what I wanted to talk to you about today was what I see as the #1 factor in our suffering. And then what can you do about that? Big topic, right? Big topic. So the first thing I wanted to say is that we're all suffering in one way or another at some point in our lives. You can't avoid suffering in life. Everyone goes through some version of it. Some are less than others. Some people suffer their whole lives. Some suffer for a portion of their lives, but suffering is something uniquely human and universal. So this is in no way a poo-pooing of suffering or dismissal of suffering, because suffering does have its place. Sometimes actually suffering can bring us into a higher plane, energetic plane. It can open up our lives. And so I'm not trashing suffering if you want to suffer or if you've gone through suffering, nor am I dismissing it or downplaying it. Just wanted to say that right off. However, in my experience and what I have experienced with my clients is that there are some things that make suffering worse, excuse me, for you. Just need a little water there. And things that you can do about it. So what I've noticed is that whenever we're going through something, whether it's a loss of a loved one or being ill or being in a war situation or starvation or abuse or a fight with our spouse or a disagreement with your children, whatever it is, there's always the facts of what's going on. And then there's always the story and narrative in our head. Let me explain. And I'm going to show you a quick exercise you can do to parse those out. So, and you can pause this video to do that. So one of the things that and I do this a lot, is writing down what's going on in your life that feels like it's causing suffering in your life. So take out some paper, and you can stop this video and do the exercise. Take out a piece of paper and just take 5 minutes to write down what's going on right now. Just like the who, what, where, when, and why of something that's been bothering you. Maybe something you're suffering with. Maybe it's a big thing. Maybe it's a small thing. Just write it down, and you can stop the video if you want and just write all that down. Okay, so you've written down your story. Now we're going to look at it from 2 different lenses. One is the facts lens, and the other is the story lens. So when you look at that story that you've written down, tell me the facts of the story. So in other words, facts are, I got some news on the phone that I didn't like. He walked in the room and said something to me. I drove to the store. I got a call from my sister. Those are facts, right? Pretty plain. I liken it to, if anyone is old enough as I am to remember the show Dragnet, where they would come to the door and say, just the facts, ma'am, just give me the facts, right? Because they don't want the story. They just want the actual facts, right? So you're going to write those down. Then next to them, maybe in another column, you're going to write down all your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your assumptions, your perceptions, your stories, whatever they are, about the facts. So that an example would be, I can't believe he was so late. He's always late. Or this is the most devastating thing that's ever happened to me. Or I can't believe that I'm going through this again. Or she was so rude on the phone. Or I felt so disrespected. Things like that. The emotional response. So you write those down. So if you need to stop the video to do that, do that. Okay, you've written down your facts and you've written down what I call the narrative. Now, when you look at those, when you look at the facts, what are you noticing? When you look at the narrative, what are you noticing? So just take a minute to do that. So here's a question. How do you feel when you look at those? Where do you feel the suffering coming from? Is it from the facts or is it from the narrative? Now, some people say, well, I look at the facts and I have all this emotional reaction. I'm like, well, that's the narrative. The emotional reaction is the narrative. So that's why I ask you to separate them out. What you'll notice is that most people look at the narrative and they go, oh my gosh, this is where I'm suffering, because it's all the assumptions and perceptions and emotions, the story, all the beliefs about what's going on. That is where I'm suffering. The actual facts don't necessarily require that. Now, I understand there's some things that could be happening there where you go and you go, well, that person died. How can I not feel something about that? I'm not asking you not to feel at all. Your feelings are really important. Your emotions are extremely important. Without emotions, we wouldn't have much of a life. What I'm saying is, where are you suffering? Where are you suffering? So emotions, great. But where are you suffering? Are you doing unnecessarily making a lot of assumptions about something? Whether the assumptions are about yourself, where did I go wrong? I must have done something wrong, or that person's a jerk, he's always a jerk. Where's the suffering? It's almost always in the narrative. So that's the biggest factor in your suffering. Now, what do you do about that, right? It's one thing to kind of to not know it and then know it. And then there's another thing like, what do I do with all this information? So I would say the first thing is that just knowing that there's a narrative going on in your mind while something's happening that heavily influences how you experience it and how much you suffer is great to know. Just knowing that, because it helps you see that this is a separate thing going on in your mind. In other words, the narrative is not your truth. It's not reality. It's an interpretation of reality. In other words, here's another example. When you have a court case, right? A lot of times they use eyewitnesses. But the thing is, eyewitnesses are not always accurate. So when you ask an eyewitness what happened, one eyewitness may see a person running out of a place and assuming that they're guilty. Oh, that's the guy who did it. He was running, therefore. Another person sees someone running out of a store or whatever and interprets it differently. Oh, he was running for his life. He's being chased. He's the victim, right? So you're like being the eyewitness of the facts of your story and you're interpreting everything, right? It's not always accurate. It's not always accurate. And the thing is, it kind of can't be, because we grow up with a whole history and emotional patterns and all our beliefs So everything that we experience in our life is colored by those things. I was reading a great book called I Never Thought of It That Way by Monica Guzman. I highly recommend it. And one of the things she said is, our opinions are not even ours. That blew my mind. I loved it. Our opinions are not even ours. So not only they may be inaccurate or wrong or right, but they're not even ours. They're based on our history and our perceptions, maybe what our parents told us, what our culture told us, expectations about who we are, right? So part of it is noticing that you have a narrative going on all the time. And you may just spend, after this video, just watching the narrative go all the time about everything. Wow, that was an interesting video. I didn't believe it. Oh, here's a guy walking down the street. I don't like his tie. You're going to notice it. You're going to notice it's going to get really loud, but you're going to know it's not necessarily reality, or at least an accurate perception of reality. Now, it doesn't mean you're going crazy, and it doesn't mean that you kind of second guess yourself all the time. It's just putting the narrative in its place. If it's causing you a lot of suffering, it may be time to get some support around that. Sometimes just knowing it's a narrative helps alleviate the suffering. So the other thing that I would say that you can do about it, besides just knowing that it's a narrative, is looking at what is it based on? What assumptions and beliefs is it based on? And once you know that, then all bets are off. Everything can change. So we can go into that into later videos, but I just wanted to leave you with that. So just notice the narrative that's going on around your suffering. Is it the same narrative? Why is it always me? Why do I always have to do this? Why am I the only responsible one? Why am I the only one seeing this? Is it that kind of narrative that's always going on that you're suffering with? Or is it another one? Or does it seem like they're different all the time? Just notice this week. And make notes. When you write your story, your bigger story, and then separating that facts from the fiction or the narrative, just notice what comes up for you. Maybe there's some points of clarity, and write that down. Oh, I realized I made assumptions about that. Or, oh, I've gone through this before and I came out okay. Or, oh, there seems to be a pattern here where I'm always feeling bad and wrong. Whatever it is, just notice that. I hope this video was helpful to you today. If you liked it, please subscribe so you don't miss anything else on the channel, and just like the video. That really helps a lot, so that more people can see the video. Every like and every subscription helps more people see the video. So this is your way of passing it along to a friend who needs it. And of course, you can always share it wherever you want if it meant something to you. So until then, thank you so much. I hope you have a great week. Don't forget to just notice the narratives going on in your head, and there'll be more later. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.